Greetings, members, one and all of the Salivation Nation. The $20 bill is about to undergo a pretty big change. Let's explore. That's right. The New York Times has a piece here continuing an effort first started during the Obama administration. Biden's Treasury will seek to put Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill, which the Trump administration had paused for quite some time. Let's take a look at this article here. Before we get into this, two things. Number one, it is a very politically charged subject here, as is usually the case when we talk about changing our money, or when we're talking about presidents or Democrats, Republicans, or placing blame. And after all, I am reading from the New York Times. Some people refer to them as the New York Slimes, but I digress. I'm going to try to leave my personal opinion out of this, other than to say that most of you are aware of my feelings that I don't like when figures are put on our coinage or our bills for political reasons. But nonetheless, I admit that usually that is the case most of the time, especially with our commemorative coin program, for one reason or another. And I think in many ways it's kind of disheartening. I think we should celebrate our heroes. And by the way, the subject of this video, Mrs. Harriet Ross Tubman, is definitely a hero, and none of her efforts I would ever by any stretch diminish, but I just wonder what the motivation is for it, other than the woke culture and political correctness. But moving ahead with the story here, President Biden's Treasury Department is studying ways to speed up the process of adding Harriet Tubman's portrait to the front of the $20 bill after the Trump administration allowed the Obama-era initiative to collapse. Jen Psaki, the White House press secretary, said on Monday. The decision to have Miss Tubman replace Andrew Jackson as the face of the $20 note was set into motion in 2016 by the Treasury Secretary at the time, Jacob Lew. I don't think that's exactly right, though. The notes would co-circulate along with Andrew Jackson. I actually covered this story when it first was being proposed at the time, and that's how I remember it. I have to go back and watch the video on it, but I believe that was the case. It was going to co-circulate, which in a way I really wouldn't have a problem with, but there were some other aspects of the initiative that did trouble me a little bit, but the least of which was Mrs. Tubman. President Donald J. Trump opposed the idea, and his Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin stopped work on that part of the currency redesign, arguing that adding new security features to the money was a more urgent priority. Mr. Mnuchin said that notes with new imagery could not be put into circulation until 2028, and that a future Treasury Secretary would make the call whether to replace Jackson. And so, yes, I think there is another aspect. Now, the $20 bill has not changed during the Trump administration, but I am of the understanding that a lot of these changes for these notes do take considerably much longer time than changing our coins, which in some ways I kind of don't understand why that would be the case, because with microprinting and everything that can go along with it, it seems like it'd be easier to do, but maybe I just don't know the entire process. The article continues, the Treasury Department, which Mr. Biden has nominated Janet L. Yellen to lead, plans to accelerate that timeline. The Treasury Department is taking steps to resume efforts to put Harriet Tubman on the front of the new $20 notes. Mrs. Psaki said, it's important that our money reflect the history and diversity of our country. Treasury spokeswoman said that she had no information to share on when a new design of the $20 bill might be released. My guess is if Secretary Mnuchin was correct, it's going to take quite a long time, maybe beyond 2030, which is crazy to me to think about that it would take that long to do. Anyways, the article continues here, again from the New York Times, is that Mr. Trump professed to be a fan of Andrew Jackson, a fellow populist, and was a fierce opponent to altering historical images and statues. Mr. Mnuchin's decision to slow walk the change drew backlash from some Democrats in Congress and triggered a probe from the Treasury Inspector General about whether the process faced improper political interference. But the inquiry found no wrongdoing by Mr. Mnuchin. And there it is, the political angle to it. Under Mr. Liu's plan, the new design was supposed to be unveiled in 2020 on the centennial of the 19th Amendment, which granted women the right to vote. For those of you who don't know, Harriet Tubman was a suffragist as well as known as Moses. In other words, she had the Underground Railroad that freed slaves in the South up into the northern United States, and when that became illegal, she sent them up to British North America, otherwise known as Canada. Preliminary designs of the note were obtained by the New York Times. We're going to take a look at that. This is one reason why I am reading from this report here. They were revealed before Mr. Trump took office. A conceptual work on bills rendering Tubman's likeness on the front and a statue of Jackson on the back was already underway. And so here we can see there were several different notes that were going to undertake a redesign. And we're going to take a look at these here. And here is the $5 bill, which has other civil rights figures and women's rights activists here. And we can see Martin Luther King here just in the corner. So these designs would have been placed on the back of the bill. And then we would have had, the Lincoln Memorial here, which appears to be facing the wrong way. If that's where the statue, no, I guess that is the right way because that's where the Washington Monument is. And so there is that, and then you have so that's the $5 bill, which has a photo of Marian Anderson Smithsonian, and then Eleanor Roosevelt along, and then Martin Luther King, and then the seated Lincoln there. And then in the background you show the crowd, which is the March on Washington. There is what those figures mean on the $5 bill. And the $10 bill was going to have a rendition of the Treasury building there, kind of off-centered. And then it would have contained Sojourner Truth, Lucretia Mott, Susan B. Anthony, Alice Paul, women's rights activist there, and then an image of a letter to Congress from Stanton and Anthony from December of 1871, and then a march to Lafayette Square. And so this is these renderings come directly from the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, designing this for votes for women there. So that would be interesting to see. So that's where these bills, and I was on the understanding that they would co-circulate with the other bills, all of these bills. So here we have the $20 bill, and the $20 bill was the only one that would have a figure on the obverse, and that would be the figure of Harriet Tubman, which is kind of a strange rendering of her. But there is the conceptual design with the refined H. Tubman portrait, and that is from an original from the Ohio History Connection there. And so this is the figure potentially that could be on the front of the $20 bill if this is brought into circulation 4 or 5 years from now, given the timeline from when the original would take place. If they fast track this, maybe sooner, but nonetheless, the artwork here, the conceptual artwork, is actually the easiest thing to do. So their argument to be able to make this thing happen quicker, say they made this progress, it's probably very easy to do. And then on the reverse, it would include the Washington Monument behind the White House there, and then the modern White House with the Jackson statue. So we had that way, it would pay homage to Andrew Jackson still, but it would just be on the reverse of the bill there. So very interesting. So there it is. These are the designs and of what was originally proposed. Now there was talk about the $20 bill, but that was just a question that was asked in a press conference. There was nothing about the $5 and $10 bills as to what will happen there. So it'll be very interesting to see what will occur there and how this will fast track or not. My guess is it probably will. But again, I can't overstate enough how important Harriet Tubman was to our history. In fact, I think her, Frederick Douglass are the foundation for civil rights. People don't realize that Frederick Douglass as well was a woman's suffragist. In other words, he was for women's rights, equal rights for women as well as for slaves. In fact, many would argue at the time that he was just as much for women's rights, equal rights, as for slaves. And so I think that he should be honored as well, in my opinion. He is on the D.C. District coin from 2009. But I believe it'd be nice to see a commemorative coin from him or what have you. But nonetheless, there's always motives for something. But I think as from a pure historical aspect and for the cause of freedom and liberty, really I don't have much trouble with Harriet Tubman because she was for liberty and freedom for all. And that's really what America is about. But nonetheless, there it is. Fascinating indeed. Interesting story. So we shall see. Harriet Tubman. Will she be coming to a $20 bill near you soon? We'll find out. I'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for taking the time to watch this video. Post your thoughts in the comment section below. And let me know what your thoughts are. I'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude and encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and after all of that gobbledygook, subscribe.